All right, I want to talk real quick about the box model example because in this class we are going to be using responsive design where we fix this box model problem. Okay, first of all, this dashed line here between the border and padding, you can consider this the edge of your content box. So let's say that you created a div tag. This here, this dashed line would be your the starting point of that div tag. So by default, the way that everything works is that the size, the height and width that you make your box is going to be this dashed line here. So what that means is if you add any kind of border, it will add to the outside of the box, causing your box to be higher in width than you actually coded it for, or wider in, or higher in height or wider in width that you actually coded it for. If you add margin, that will also add height and width to your actual set height and width that you created. If you add padding, it goes to the inside, so it technically won't make your box any bigger. It just makes the content area smaller. And then this little box here shows the actual content. So you can think of this space here as being like 20 pixels. This is 20 pixels, and this is 20 pixels. So in this example, we have added padding, border, and margin to our div tag using CSS. The border and the margin add to the outside width. And here's an example with the actual numbers. So if you had said that your box was going to be, let's say, 440 pixels by 240 pixels, your padding would take 40 pixels away because in this example, the padding is 20 pixels wide. Okay, so that's why this content area says that it's 400 by 100, because it's even if you wrote it in your code as 440 by 140, it's actually less because it takes those numbers away. So this line here between the padding 20 and the border 6 would be your actual div tag, which has the height and width numbers on it. And that means that your border, if your border is 6 pixels wide, then you would add 6 pixels to the height and the width, giving you 12 more pixels on both your height and your width. And if your margin was 20 pixels each on the top, the bottom, and the two sides, then to your height and width you would have 40 pixels added. So that's 52 pixels added to your width that you weren't planning for. And what happens in responsive design is that it pushes those numbers out for us. So what happens is the box is actually bigger, and that can cause your responsive website to be broken or to be pushed down so that elements don't line up properly. So what we have to do is we have to add a little piece of code that will fix this problem. And we see here that we have, when we use this little piece of code, all of our numbers, all of our margin and our border and our padding will be added to the inside of our box, keeping our height and width exactly how we coded it. And we want it that way because we don't want margin and border to push out our content area, therefore making the actual width, which you can see here with this red line, be larger than what we coded it for. Okay? And that little piece of code, let's see, I have it in box sizing, I believe. All right, so this is, I'm showing you this example with, and I'll put this online, but in D2L. But this example has internal CSS, which means that I've put the CSS in the head tag and not used an external CSS to make this CSS code. But this is just a box that has a class of container, and then there's 2 boxes inside, and then we've cleared that, and we've cleared them both using an inline style, because we used a float of left on our box. So I'm going to show you what this looks like in live preview. So this is just showing you that it doesn't matter how big I make it, it is perfectly dividing in half the content. So the 2 content areas are always going to be in half. That's because the width here is 50%. My container has 100% width. My container also has a border, a solid black 2-pixel border, and my border box has a border of 5 pixels solid, a red line. Now this guy here, a star, means universal, means every single piece of content in my document I want to have this. And then in the curly brackets we put the words box dash sizing colon, and then we choose border box. If I take that away and I start to type it out, it shows me code hinting, which tells me I can either choose border box, content box, or inherent. So we want that border box. If you weren't going to use border box, you would just take it off completely. I don't need to have it here just because I have it up here and it's going to be applied to everything. But I believe when I was coding this out, I coded these boxes to have it to show the difference. So if I comment this out here, and I comment this one out so you can see the difference. Go to my live view. Okay, so my live view shows you what's going on, because the 2 boxes, even though they're coded to say that it needs, okay, all kinds of problems over here. All right, even though it's coded to say that I want it to be 50%, the border makes it larger than 50%, which pushes the boxes down. They're not floating left. They're not next to each other anymore, because this red border is making them larger than 50%. So if I add this back and refresh this, you can see that they fit in there. And then this is just showing you that we can add it to every single element on our document using this star, and then we don't need to have it in every single div tag or every single HTML tag on our document. When we do responsive design, we typically just add this to the top of our external CSS and then be done with it, because then it's there all the time. All right, so that's box sizing border box, which you should all start to use, because we're going to be getting into more responsive elements as we go. If you have any questions, you can send me a text message, call me, email me. It's up to you.